Hello everyone, myself Dr. Pallavi Thorat and I am going to teach you surgery. Okay, from surgery I am going to teach you the ENT, that is ear, nose and throat. So this is the first lecture and we'll start with the diseases of the ear first. Okay, before going to the diseases of ear, you must know the anatomy of the ear. So in this first lecture I am going to shortly introduce you about the anatomy of the ear. You have learnt it in first year, but in shortly I will explain you about the anatomy of ear in today's lecture. Okay, so on your screen this is the diagram of ear. Okay, this one is the external ear. Okay, the external ear consists of pinna. This is pinna. Okay, then external auditory canal. Okay, so these are the two parts, that is pinna and external auditory canal. The pinna is formed by yellow elastic cartilage and that is covered with skin. So this is the pinna. Okay, and it is formed by yellow elastic cartilage and that is covered by skin. The skin and the perichondrium are intimately adherent. Skin and perichondrium are adherent to each other. Okay, and the cartilage is absent in the ear lobule. So in the ear lobule there is no cartilage. Okay, that is the pinna. Then next part is from external ear is external auditory canal. This one is the external auditory canal. Okay, size of this external auditory canal is approximately 2.5 centimeter in length. Okay, and it extends from bottom of the concha to the eardrum. Eardrum is tympanic membrane. Okay, the parts of the external auditory canal, the outer 1/3 is cartilaginous and the skin is immediately adherent to the cartilage, and therefore when there is furuncle in this area it is very painful. Okay, then the skin has hair follicles and the ceruminous glands which secretes wax. This is outer 1/3, and the inner 2/3 portion of the canal is bony and the skin is thin as it lacks sebaceous and ceruminous glands. Okay, the external auditory canal, it divides into outer 1/3 and inner 2/3 portion. The outer 1/3 is cartilaginous and the skin is adherent to the cartilage, and therefore when there is any furuncle or boil in this area, that will be very painful. And the skin of this area has hair follicles in it and ceruminous glands are present. This ceruminous glands secretes wax. Okay, and the inner 2/3 portion of this canal is bony and the skin is very thin and it lacks the sebaceous and ceruminous glands. Okay, then the shape of this external auditory canal, there is a narrowest part that is called as isthmus. It is situated about 5 millimeters lateral to the eardrum. That is from eardrum or tympanic membrane. The short narrowest part is situated about 5 millimeter laterally, and the foreign body may usually get lodged over that part. Okay, this canal is S-shaped and it is directed at first inwards, upwards and forwards, and then it is carried inward, backward and upward, and finally it passes inward, forward and downward. This shape makes it necessary to pull the pinna upwards and backwards while you examine the ear in adults. When you examine the ear in adults, you have to pull the pinna upward and backwards. Okay, while in children the canal is shorter and straighter and it is without hair, and thus the eardrum often can be directly examined without any ear speculum, as it is shorter and straighter in children. Okay, so this is the shape. Once again I will explain you. The narrowest part, or it is called as isthmus. It is situated 5 mm lateral to the eardrum, and foreign body may get lodged over there. The canal is S-shaped, and in adults, when you examine the ear in adults, then you have to pull the pinna upwards and backwards. While in children, it is shorter and straighter, and that's why the eardrum can directly examined without any ear speculum. Okay, so this is external auditory canal. Okay, these are the two parts of external ear. There are some relations of external auditory canal. Anteriorly to the external auditory canal, there is temporomandibular joint. Then superiorly, there is middle cranial fossa, and posteriorly there is mastoid air cells and mastoid antrum. Okay, the next part is tympanic membrane. This is tympanic membrane, or you can say eardrum. Okay, this is eardrum. The tympanic membrane is very thin. It is translucent disc, and it is situated between external and middle ear. Between the external and middle ear, there is a membrane that is called as tympanic membrane, or it is also called as eardrum. And functionally and structurally, it forms the lateral wall of the tympanic cavity. This is tympanic cavity. This tympanic cavity's lateral wall is formed by tympanic membrane or eardrum. Okay, there are 3 layers of tympanic membrane. That is the outer epithelial layer, which is continuous with epithelium of the external ear. The outer layer, which is continuous with epithelium of external ear. So outer epithelial layer. Then second one is middle fibrous layer, that consists of radial and circular fibers, and third layer is inner layer, which is called as mucosal layer, which is continuous with mucosa of tympanum, that is mucosa of tympanic cavity or tympanum. These are 3 layers: outer epithelial layer, which is continuous with epithelium of external ear; middle fibrous layer, which consists of radial and circular fibers; while the inner mucosal layer, which is continuous with mucosa of tympanum. Okay, and then this tympanic membrane, it is divided into 2 parts, that is pars tensa and pars flaccida. The 2 parts, pars tensa and pars flaccida. Okay, this is tympanic membrane, and it is divided into 2 parts, that is pars tensa and pars flaccida. Okay, this one is pars flaccida, this is pars flaccida, and this is pars tensa. Okay, So that pars tensa, which is tense part, it is larger. This is pars tensa, it is larger, okay, and it is thickened peripherally into the fibrocartilaginous annulus, which fits into the tympanic sulcus, okay. And pars flaccida, this one is the pars flaccida, which is a flaccid part, and it is devoid of fibrous layer and annulus, and it fits into a notch of Rivinus, okay. Then the size, shape and the position of tympanic membrane, we will see. The eardrum, it measures approximately about 10 millimeters. So this tympanic membrane or eardrum, it measures about 10 millimeter in vertical diameter, and it is 8 millimeter in horizontal diameter. It is oval in shape. The drum is placed obliquely at an angle of 55 degrees with the floor of the inner end of external auditory canal. Okay, this drum is placed obliquely at the angle of 55 degrees with the floor of inner end of external auditory canal, and it faces downwards, forwards and outwards. Thus the floor and the anterior wall of external ear canal are longer than the roof and posterior wall. Then the surfaces of tympanic membrane or eardrum, it has lateral surface is free and it is concave, and the medial surface which is convex. Then some features of tympanic membrane are, when you examine using illumination, on examination when you use illumination, the eardrum appears lustrous, pearly gray, and it is translucent and concave. So on examination using illumination or light, the eardrum or the tympanic membrane appears lustrous, it is pearly gray, translucent and concave. The pars tensa will show the vertical handle of the malleus, which is yellowish in color, and the handle passes downwards and backwards from the short process at the umbo, at the center of drum. Okay, this one is the umbo. Okay, then the long process of incus may be visible through the eardrum behind the handle of malleus, and it runs parallel to the handle of malleus midway between it and the posterior bony wall. Then the pars tensa, it is divisible into 4 quadrants by drawing an imaginary line extending downward from the handle of malleus, and one more imaginary line at the right angle of the first line at umbo, and these 2 lines divide the pars tensa into anterior superior, this is anterior superior quadrant, then this is posterior superior quadrant, this is anterior inferior quadrant, and this is posterior inferior quadrant. So this pars tensa is divided into 4 quadrants at the level of umbo. Okay, so these are the parts of external ear, that is pinna, external auditory canal, and this tympanic membrane. Okay, then next part of ear is middle ear. So the ear it is divided into 3 parts, that is external ear, middle ear and the inner ear. we have seen the parts of external ear, that is pinna, external auditory canal and tympanic membrane. Now the middle ear. Middle ear, this entire cleft, or you can say middle ear cleft or middle ear cavity, or it is also called as tympanic cavity or tympanum. The entire cleft is lined by respiratory mucous membrane, and which is the extension of mucosa of nasopharynx. So this middle ear cavity consists of eustachian tube. This one is eustachian tube. This is eustachian tube, then tympanic cavity, and mastoid. This is mastoid. Okay, mastoid antrum. So first we will see about the eustachian tube. This one is the eustachian tube. It connects the tympanic cavity with nasopharynx. So the eustachian tube is the connection between tympanic cavity and the nasopharynx. It is approximately 3.75 centimeters long in adults, and it is bony in posterior 1/3, and it is cartilaginous at the anterior 2/3 of its length. The tube remains closed at rest. Okay, in resting condition it is closed, but the muscles of soft palate and nasopharyngeal sphincter open it during yawning and swallowing. So this eustachian tube opens while yawning and swallowing. Okay, and the nasopharyngeal opening of eustachian tube is behind the posterior end of inferior turbinate. Now where is the inferior turbinate situated? The turbinates are situated in the nose. Okay, so behind the inferior turbinate there is opening of eustachian tube in nasopharynx. Okay, one opening is in tympanic cavity, that is in middle ear, and the other outer opening is in nasopharynx behind the posterior end of inferior turbinate. In infants, this tube is shorter, it is wider, and it is more horizontal, and it opens at the lower level than that of the adults. So this is all about the eustachian tube. Now the tympanic cavity or the middle ear or middle ear cleft. This is middle ear cavity or middle ear. Okay, the tympanum lies between external ear and the inner ear, and it is shaped like a biconcave disc. The vertical and anteroposterior diameters are about 15 millimeters, while the transverse diameter is about 6 millimeter at its upper part and 2 millimeter at the center and 4 millimeter at lower part. Then the walls of this tympanic cavity. This tympanic cavity, it resembles like a matchbox, and it has 6 walls. The lateral wall, which is formed by eardrum and the bones above and below the behind the eardrum. This tympanic cavity is divided into epitympanum. This is epitympanum. Then just behind the tympanic membrane, this is mesotympanum, and hypotympanum, which lies below the eardrum. This is hypotympanum. Epitympanum, or it is also called as attic, which is above the eardrum, and it contains the upper half of malleus and a large part of incus. So this is epitympanum. Then next is mesotympanum, that is the part which is situated just behind the tympanic membrane. This is mesotympanum, and this is hypotympanum. Okay, So first wall is lateral wall, which is formed by tympanic membrane. Okay, then medial wall, it separates the middle ear from inner ear. This is inner ear, this one is the inner ear, this is middle ear. So this one is the medial wall. Then it has anterior wall, posterior walls, the floor and the roof. Okay, now the contents of the middle ear cavity. This middle ear cavity contains ossicles. There are 3 tiny ossicles or 3 tiny bones which conduct the sound from eardrum to the oval window. So first bone that is situated, that is called as hammer or malleus. This one is malleus. Okay, this is malleus, or it is also called as hammer. It is the largest and most lateral ossicles and measures about 8 mm in length. It has head, neck, handle and also anterior and lateral processes. The head is situated in epitympanum, and the lateral process, that is short process, it projects laterally from the neck, while the handle is firmly fixed to the pars tensa of the eardrum. So this one is the part where the handle of the malleus is fixed to the eardrum. Okay, the next one is this one. This is called as incus or anvil. It has a body, it has a short process and a long process. The body is articulates with head of malleus in the attic, and the short process projects backward in the attic, and the long process projects downward and behind the handle of malleus, and it articulates with the head of stapes. So this is the third bone. Okay, that is called as stapes or stirrup. It is a smallest ossicle and it measures about 3.5 mm. It consists of head, neck, foot plate of stapes and also anterior and posterior cruras. The foot plate of stapes is held to the oval window by the annular ligament. So this one is the foot plate of stapes. It is held to the oval window by annular ligament. So the foot plate of stapes is it lies in the oval window, and it is held in the oval window by the annular ligament. Then there are some muscles. So these are the 3 bones, that is malleus, incus and stapes. The handle of malleus is attached to the tympanic membrane, to the eardrum. This is the handle of malleus. Okay, this is attached to tympanic membrane. Then the head of malleus is attached to the incus. This is incus, and the incus is attached to the stapes. Okay, then muscles that are present are tensor tympani and stapedius muscles. They decrease the movements of ossicles, and the tensor tympani is inserted into the neck of malleus, while stapedius is inserted into the neck of stapes. Some ligaments are present, keep that those ligaments keep the ossicles in their place. Okay, and the nerve that is present is chorda tympani, which is the branch of facial nerve which carries the sense of taste. And air is present that fills the tympanic cavity and the mastoid. So the contents of the middle ear cavity are 3 small tiny bones. First one is malleus, then second one is incus, and last one is stapes. Then some muscles are present, that is tensor tympani and stapedius muscle. Some ligaments are present which keep the ossicles in their place. The nerve that is present is called a tympani, and this middle ear cleft or middle ear cavity is filled up with air. Okay, so this is the tympanic cavity. And third part, that is mastoid. This one is mastoid. Okay, the parts of mastoid are there are three parts, that is aditus to antrum, mastoid antrum, and mastoid ASS. This one is the aditus to antrum. It is a short canal, connects the epitympanum with mastoid antrum. The short process of incus lies in the floor, and the facial nerve that runs in the canal in the floor. Okay, this is aditus to antrum, which connects the epitympanum. This is epitympanum to the mastoid antrum. Then this is mastoid antrum. It is the largest air cell in the mastoid bone. The antrum is important landmark in the surgery of the mastoid bone. Okay, anteriorly the antrum receives aditus, and the facial nerve also lies in anterior to the antrum, and medially it is related to horizontal semicircular canals. The roof is formed by tegmen plate, and the lateral wall is formed by the cortex of mastoid bone. And posterior inferiorly the antrum communicates with the numerous mastoid cells. So that is a mastoid antrum, and this one is the mastoid air cells. Mastoid air cells, third part. They are variable in number. Mastoid air cells are variable in number, size, and its distribution. These communicate with mastoid antrum. So these mastoid air cells communicate with mastoid antrum, and there are three types of mastoid processes, that is cellular, diploic, and sclerotic. Okay, this is middle ear. Okay, so up till now we have seen the external ear. The parts of external ear are, this is pinna, then external auditory canal, this is tympanic membrane. Okay, then we have seen the middle ear. The parts of middle ear are the eustachian tube, this is eustachian tube, then middle ear cavity or tympanum, or you can say middle ear cleft, and this one is the mastoid antrum. Okay, now we'll move to the inner ear. Inner ear, it lies in the, so this is inner ear. Okay, it lies in the petrous part of temporal bone, and it consists of bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. Okay, this is bony labyrinth, and this one is the membranous labyrinth. Okay, so bony labyrinth, which is a capsule, which is a series of bony cavities connected with each other, and it contains fluid that is called as perilymph. And the membranous labyrinth, which lies suspended in the perilymph of bony labyrinth, it consists of sacs and tubes connected with each other and contains another type of fluid that is called as endolymph. So this is the bony labyrinth. Okay, bony labyrinth, which is the series of bony cavities. It is made up of bones These are the bony cavities, okay, connected with each other, and it contains the fluid that is called as perilimb. While this one is the membranous labyrinth, which remains suspended into the perilimb. Perilimb is present into the bony cavities or bony labyrinth, and membranous labyrinth remains suspended into the bony labyrinth, okay. And this membranous labyrinth consists of fluid that is called as endolymph, okay. And the membranous labyrinth, it consists of some sacs and tubes. Those are connected with each other, okay. So this bony labyrinth consists of 3 semicircular canals posteriorly. These are the semicircular canals posteriorly. Vestibule in the middle. This one is the vestibule which lies in the middle, and the cochlea which lies anteriorly. This is cochlea, okay. This one is the cochlea. And the membranous labyrinth, it is made up of parts like semicircular canals. These are the semicircular canals. Then a utricle. This one is a utricle. And the cochlea or cochlear duct, okay. So once again I will explain you, this is bony labyrinth and this one is the membranous labyrinth. These are the parts of inner ear, okay. The bony labyrinth is a series of bony cavities which are connected with each other, and this contains perilimb, okay. And the bony labyrinth consists of 3 semicircular canals. These are the semicircular canals. These are semicircular canals, then vestibules and cochlea. This is cochlea, okay. Then this one is the membranous labyrinth, which is suspended into the perilimb, and it contains sacs and tubes connected with each other, and this membranous labyrinth contains of endolymph. Then it consists of semicircular canals. These are the semicircular canals, then utricle and the cochlea, okay. So these are the parts of inner ear. The semicircular canals of the membranous labyrinth, there are 3 membranous semicircular canal at the right angle to each other, and they named as horizontal, posterior and superior canals, and each canal represents a plane in space, and each one lies in the semicircular canal of bony labyrinth, okay. So these semicircular canals are present in the semicircular canals of bony labyrinth. Every canal has dilated anterior end that is called as ampulla, which contains a patch of neuroepithelium called as crista. The hair of crista are embedded in the overlying cupola, and it is get displaced with the movements of endolymph. Then second part is utricle. This is utricle, okay. This is utricle and sacule. This one is the sacule, okay. It lies in the vestibule of the bony labyrinth, okay. Utricle and sacule lies in the vestibule of bony labyrinth. These semicircular canals opens into the utricle, which is connected in front to the sacule by endolymphatic duct. This one is the endolymphatic duct, okay. The endolymphatic duct is also connected to the succus endolymphaticus, which probably helps in the absorption of endolymph. And then utricle as well as the saccule have a patch of neuroepithelium called as macula, which is the end organ responding to the gravitational pull and linear acceleration. And last one is cochlear duct. Cochlea, it is a tube lying in the bony cochlea, and it is coiled for 2.5 turns, 2.5 turn around the central bony medullus. It is connected to the saccule by ductus reunions, and the cochlear duct is triangular in cross section. The perilymph fills the scala vestibuli and scala tympani, and it bathes in cochlear duct on two sides. Okay, this is all about the inner ear. So this is all about the anatomy of ear. Okay, some physiology I will explain you shortly. Okay, about the hearing mechanism or the physiology of hearing. As hearing is the main function of ear, it is also a very important end organ of the proprioceptive system. You should know the physiology of hearing. From the functional point of view, the ear may be divided into two parts, that is conducting apparatus and the perceiving apparatus. The conducting apparatus, which conducts the sound and consists of external ear, tympanic membrane and ossicular chain, while the perceiving apparatus, where the perception of sound occurs, this consists of cochlea, auditory division of 8th cranial nerve and its central connections. So first is conducting apparatus. This consists of conduction of sound through the air and bone. So first organ in conducting apparatus is external ear. The pinna has the most pinna has lost most of its function of collecting the sound waves in the human beings, and the external auditory meatus conducts the sound to the eardrum. Okay, then the middle ear, when the sound waves falls on the eardrum, it sets into vibration, and these vibrations are transmitted to cochlea via the ossicular chain, which transmits the sound waves to the oval window by the footplate of stapes. Okay, now when the sounds the conducting apparatus consists of, this one is the pinna. The sound enters into the ear through the pinna, that is in the external ear. Then it goes into the sound waves goes into the external auditory canal. This is external auditory canal. Then the sound waves conducts the sound into the eardrum. This is eardrum. Okay, when the sound waves falls on the eardrum, it sets into vibrations, and these vibrations are transmitted to cochlea through this ossicular chain. This is ossicular chain. It goes into the inner ear. Okay, so this is the conducting apparatus. And the perceiving apparatus is as we have seen, it is a cochlea. then auditory division of 8th cranial nerve and its central connections. While the eustachian tube remains closed at rest, but it opens into the during the swallowing and yawning, and thus it equalizes the pressure of air in the middle ear and pressure of the air in the atmosphere. So the equalization of air pressure on both the sides of eardrum is essential for optimum functioning of eardrum and the attached ossicular chain for the conducting the sound. And in the absence of ossicular system, the sound is transmitted to cochlea by the bone directly to some extent. So this is how the physiology of hearing. Okay. And in physiology of equilibrium, the vestibule is very important end organ of the proprioceptive mechanism, and other proprioceptors of the body are muscles, tendons, some joints, skin and eyes, and these end organs are connected to the cerebellum and cerebrum. These are the central connections where the final perception of sense of equilibrium occurs. And this the function of semicircular canals are, the semicircular canals are stimulated by the angular acceleration because the flow of endolymph in canals excited the crista of their ampullae, and the 3 canals on each side of body are arranged at right angle to each other, and thus each one can be stimulated by the movements in its place. And the posture is maintained by labyrinth as well as the proprioceptive reflexes, and these reflexes are static, which are produced at rest, and kinetic, which are produced during the movements. The body posture is maintained by the labyrinth and the proprioceptive reflexes. So this is all about the anatomy and shortly the physiology of hearing. Okay, this is all for today. From next lecture we'll start with the diseases of the ear. Okay, thank you.